Hey everybody, Tire Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully everyone's doing well. Hopefully everyone's had a good start to the week here, or the first leg of it, I should say. But as far as tonight's video is concerned, this was really meant to go up in the morning, but some models weren't updating, and then also CPC itself didn't even have this Outlook up to uploaded yet. This got issued later this afternoon, so it kind of threw things off track. So if anyone was expecting this video in the morning, I apologize. If anyone didn't see my post, also apologize to that too. But that being said, here we finally got everything that we need to get this video done. So hope you guys enjoy it. Of course, if you do enjoy it, you know what to do. Smash that like button for me, and also hit that share button too. Definitely trying to finish out the year strong. Looks like for right now the weather's been pretty quiet, so any support that I get right now, especially since live streams are a little bit more few and far in between right now due to our current circumstances, be appreciated. That being said, let's go ahead and get into it here. So the monthly outlook that we're seeing right now, of course, look, I've been talking about this a bit now, and this has been the positive PNA trend that I've been seeing, where it's warm out west, a little bit cooler out to the east. Over the 30-day average, especially considering what I've been seeing more so for the first half of the month, definitely looks a lot like it's going to be the predominant trend here. I do think there's going to be some little changes here and there where we could start to see a couple warm-up spells out towards the east here as well, and a couple of cooler days out west, but I think this will be the dominant trend. And of course, below average temperatures are likely over mainly towards the far northeastern states, especially towards the New England region. I think even a chance for a snowstorm or two could be possible here. We'll get into the details with that a little bit more. And there's still not many to be had since we're still looking really far out into the future here. Another way to kind of note what's going on with not just only the PNA, as I call it, but also the AO, the Arctic Oscillation, is kind of what we see going on in Alaska. We're seeing this warmer than average trend over here, and while this is not necessarily a full-on conclusion, normally when we have those positive AO phases or positive Arctic Oscillation phases, we often will see a decent bit of warm air around northern Alaska in particular. Like I said, just more so a little trend that I've seen from time to time, but if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me in the comments. When we look at the precipitation outlook here, it's odd that we're seeing a similar look here. I think the jet stream is a little bit further north of the border as a result. So as a whole here, the country is going to be a little less active when it comes to weather in the short term and into the medium term as well. I think northwest, of course, is going to be pretty active, especially with that polar jet stream being positioned as it is. The subtropical jet is a little bit active, but there isn't much amplitude with it, so the storm systems are going to be a little bit more fewer and far in between. If you were to have more amplitude, more ridges, more troughs, a little something, I guess you would call it a little bit more like this, maybe. That would be something that's more active. I know it's a terrible depiction, but we're kind of seeing something more like this. And again, terrible depiction, or yeah, but something a little bit more like this towards the top is what we're seeing more of, and that usually just leads to quieter weather. We can still get some pretty solid cool downs as a result, but usually those patterns will actually end up lingering for a little bit longer when they're just a tiny bit more zonal. It takes a little bit more time for things to get going here, but as a whole here, and I'm watching the Gulf Coast in particular for any sort of severe potential, and also of course there's tropics we could talk about as well. There is a chance of something maybe brewing up near Cuba in the medium term, maybe even long term here. So as a result, we could also see some increased precip chances over towards Florida and the Gulf Coast here as well. But as a whole here, the rest of the country is on equal chances. I'm leaning somewhat towards really below average chances for some of these other areas here over the next couple weeks in particular. It's not that we aren't going to get rain, it's just going to be more or less fewer far in between. But if we were to take a look at things right now as far as temperatures are concerned, which is what we're going to go into first, you can see that we're in a almost, I would call it a textbook positive PNA setup. Here's that warmth out west, and then here's that cool air out to the east here. And this is going to stick around for at least a couple of weeks here, or this is going to be the dominant trend, I should say. There's, like I said, there's likely to be a few days within this point where we see a little bit more warm air try to push a little further to the east or kind of retreat. But as we move further along, we get towards week 3, we can see the warm air starting to take back over and start to actually shift a little bit more towards the east here. We don't have a full-on inkling of a full-on shift from positive to negative PNA, but nonetheless, though, I think that is starting to come into motion here. We're starting to see a little bit of a cool off over here towards the west a bit more, and a little bit of a, I wouldn't call this a full-on heat wave, but definitely inclination of increased warm air across the northern tiers of the Midwest. And if you look at it from last week on to this week, you can see a little bit of movement there. Like I said, mainly seeing a little bit less movement due to the fact that jet stream doesn't have a lot of amplitude to help really bring those air masses forth, or get those air masses moving off to the races, so to speak. We look at the moisture potential over the next few weeks here. We'll start from the beginning, and like I said, less amplitude in the jet stream usually leads to quieter weather, and we're seeing a good example of that. This, like I said, not every day is going to be dry. There's going to be chances for maybe some showers, maybe some storms, maybe snow if you're in the right spot, but I wouldn't expect any major storm systems right now. Definitely a far cry from what we were seeing last year. As time goes on, we get towards November 28th, just towards the end of the month, it's around Thanksgiving and times beyond that point, we can see that there's a little bit of moisture available over towards Texas here, or there's increased precip anomaly over here, Great Lakes as well. But even then, for the most part, we're either hanging at average or we might be actually slightly below. And then as we even sneak peek into the first couple weeks of December, might be a chance of some storms here or there across the Ozarks here, maybe even across the Tennessee and Ohio valleys even. But of course, like I said, looking this far out, take that with a grain of salt. So a couple of other things that we're going to look at here, because we're not going to really get into just what the models are looking like overall as far as precip and temperatures, because this can easily change at the drop of a hat. We're going to take a look at what a couple of our oscillations are looking like, and this can sometimes be a good inclination as to what we see next. If you want further, if you want a little bit more of an in-depth look at it, just or a little bit more in-depth understanding, I should say, you can look at the oscillations videos that I've put up on the Weather Nerd 101 list. But that being said here, let's go ahead and look at the AO, our Arctic oscillation. Usually this is a dominant phase where we see a little bit more, we look more towards the center of the earth, and usually it's pretty easy to read here. You can if you see this little area right here in the red, that's usually indicative of more of a positive AO, and this is pretty much going to end up being the dominant phase throughout a majority of the month. There is a period here where we start to get a little bit cool air starting to set up around the AO here, and this is the closest I can really see to a full-on negative phase right now. But just as quickly as it tries to get into that negative phase, we mainly end up staying positive right now. But this will allow for some cold air to try to work its way in towards some of the eastern states and northeastern US in particular. And this is when I think the probability for maybe a couple of snowstorms is a little bit higher. But like I said, no real guarantees with that. And like I said, we quickly get back into that positive AO phase. With this phase, it's a little bit harder to get cold air to circulate in here. Usually we end up seeing a little bit quieter of a pattern here. Usually Canada will get the worst of it, more so than the US will at this point. And throughout the majority of the month, we kind of see that there is maybe potential for 1 or 2 more little cold snaps to kick in here. But for the most part, with the AO acting as it is, I think maybe towards the middle of the month right now seems like it's going to be the most active. Of course, we'll be updating regularly, at least probably once a day, maybe once every couple of days, depending on how the weather pattern acts. So on to the NAO. Now, with this region here, it's a little bit more sketchy, but usually with the NAO, we usually will see severe weather a little bit more predominant across some of the northeastern states, depending on where this phase ends up being. For the most part with this one, I'm seeing a little bit more of a negative trend. We're looking pretty cool over this region here. Just waiting for the map to get going here, but usually the waters in between, oh boy, this thing's acting up. But usually the waters in some of the southern tip of Greenland here, and usually also with a blocking high that we have to keep an eye out for, we can sometimes get severe weather if we get warmer than average. If we get cooler than average, usually a more cold blast will be more prevalent to the southern flank of this as well. And it looks like that's going to be mostly the case throughout a portion of the month. So I think this is a big contributor to the northeast being cooler than average and having that probability here. Otherwise, I think we actually would have been looking at equal chance. Then as time goes on here, with that AO phase kind of weakening a little bit to a slightly more negative phase, allotting for occasional cold air to roll in here, we could also see that those higher probabilities get more solidified over towards the northeast here, or at least in the short term here. As far as the middle of the month, that's where things kind of get a little interesting. And for a moment, it looks like we get close to maybe a little phase shift over here towards the NAO, but ultimately that doesn't end up being the case. The cold air just kind of locks itself back in here. And with that, there's chances for quite a few more cold shots, I would say, or maybe even a couple cold blasts. If we could get any sort of amplitude with these systems and a little bit of warm air out ahead of it, things could get interesting towards the latter half of the month here. Like I said, when you look further out into the my words, I can't get my words out, but the further out you look, the less merit you can put into these forecasts. But if this trend holds, the second half of November, especially getting towards the holidays, could get pretty active here. So definitely be keeping an eye on the weather, especially as we get towards the middle part of the month and beyond. Also, make sure you're keeping an eye on this channel. Make sure you get that bell on, hit that like button, decimate that subscribe button, and obliterate that share button. With that being said, hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry for the delay again. A little frustrated, but these things happen. But till the next one, I'll see you guys later. It's been Ty, Metalhead Weatherman. Till then, take care.